So let's continue here. So we have a single family home of 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Some people say I don't want any houses with 2 bedroom, 1 bath. It limits the people.
Right.
Again, it depends on the housing in the area. If everything's a 2-1 in a small area, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let my agent tell me, hey, you have a
Right.
real hard population for this.
Yeah. And again, Fort Dodge is, I think, population 23,000 people. You're not finding as many larger houses there. So a small house doesn't really bother me too much.
So we have a situation where this thing is underwater, right? We have $115,000 balance. We have $85,000 value of the property. So we're looking at the fact that we're gonna be able to sell this thing for as much as we're gonna know it for.
Right.
Right. So we're gonna have our bid based on this value.
Yeah.
Granted, that's your byproduct we always talk about. Don't bid based on that number.
Yeah.
But understand that's the number you're gonna be focused on. When you make this offer, you're gonna be based on your returns, but the returns are gonna be driven, numbers will be driven by returns based on numbers, and then it will be based on that collateral value. Because you can't bid 100% of UPB on this thing. It's not possible. I don't care how high the interest rate is. Bidding 100% of this UPB, you're not going to get that much money when you go to auction.
Yeah, exactly.
This is definitely an auction play versus take this property back, because more than likely, unless you really want to, and no one will bid it, if the property's worth 85 grand and you make an offer at the auction for 80, more than likely people will bid on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I would much rather have it sell at foreclosure auction than take back a property. My ultimate goal is not to own property. I don't ever want to own property.
Yep.
So if I can get this unloaded at the auction, that's ideal.
So in Iowa, I'm going to bring up my master foreclosure list. I have a huge list of timelines, costs, statute of limitations, everything under the sun, and going to give you guys an idea of what we see, or I see, as a cost of foreclosure in Iowa, as well as how long it takes. So look at this number. I have 220 days for foreclosure, right? Cindy, vacant property, there's a plus minus. We'll get to that in a second. 220 days, we're looking at approximately about $2,000 to foreclose on it. That's give or take $600 in the Fannie Mae fee, $1,500 for attorney, court, auction, and all that stuff that goes through it.
Yeah,
and publication as well.
Yeah, and I like Iowa. It's not terribly expensive, and it's less than a year. What I'm looking for foreclosure is less than a year.
Yep. And the redemption period is none from my knowledge. If it is, cool. It's a share of sold situation. And assume super lien, which is HOA, which doesn't apply here.
No.
Now, let me bring this over to my statute of limitations chart. It says last pay received 5 years, maturities 10, due date 10. All the other pillars are blank. So one thing we care about is 5 years from due date. As you can see here, 2019, we're well within that due date, which is great. And this all can be do a huge lookup table, whatnot. And rather usually what you can do sometimes is kind of push up due dates in certain states and push them away.
Right.
Vacant properties are often easy to foreclose on. Deed in lieu, right?
There's positive and negatives for sure. Like
right. You can get properties quickly using vacancy. You can get deed in lieu vacancies. Usually borrowers can test much. However, the property is bad. If it's occupied, the borrower can greatly modify, reinstate, but they also can fight your foreclosure. They can trash the house. They can do a lot of stuff, right? They have that power. So there's no right or wrong. I agree with you. So we're looking at this fact that this thing here, we're going to be bidding based on this kind of number, the $85,000. As you can see, the estimated payoffs a little bit higher than the UPB.
Yeah.
And with the fact that being valued 85, you have the fact that you're looking at probably about a year, fully foreclosures, a little bit less than a year, 9 months to foreclose, get that property back in your hands and start doing something with it, or sell at the auction.
Right.
So you could probably bid a little bit high on this asset with that number, right? Given the fact your costs coming into play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So it's not bad. We won't go into exact bid numbers. That's
He bid $1. You can see right here, it's $1, right?
So the dollar, let me explain that actually. What I do with that is I will sort my spreadsheet by city and state, and then I add a column. I rearrange all the columns to be the order that I like them to be in. And then I'll add a column and I'll just scroll down and I'll just do like a quick scan of each of the loans on that tape. And I'll be able to just say, okay, so I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. So I might, tag with a little number one. I'll tag, I don't know, 5 or 10 off of a tape. And then I'll filter it so all those number ones come up to the top. So then the ones that I'm actually interested are at the top of that list, and then I can just deal with those ones.
And those ones are determined by state, value, those quick looks.
Yeah, just quick looks. And if I really don't find anything, maybe I'll go through it a little bit slower and see if I see anything for real. But usually I can do it fairly quickly and just say yes,
You do
yes,
it for a
yes,
couple
no,
of years.
no.
Well, we're next asset, something we all like. First thing that pops off my head is Texas, right? When I first got into business, I said, listen, I'll buy all Texas notes and I'll be that person. It makes sense to me until you realize that everyone else is the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Why is Texas popular? Foreclosure is cheap and quick. So you can foreclose by lethal injection, right? So we have our counties, which I'm not sure exactly where that county's at. It's a different area that I'm familiar with, but
this one's, it's not too far from Houston. It's a little bit southwest of Houston, which again, when you're looking at location, southwest of Houston, that's kind of right in that hurricane alley. And so that's a bit of a cause for concern, not even that concern, but just awareness, just to know that, potentially you could be looking at some hurricane issues there.
Gotcha. So for me, Texas is a great area. The downfall of Texas is when if you do a Zillow look, you're going to find that you can't get numbers.
Very difficult.
They don't report any numbers on their sales.
Yeah.
My due diligence portal can get some information from different places. So we're able to get some numbers, but if you looking for that deep dive, Gabe says, oh, hey, Gabe, the restart state. What do you mean by restart state? I'm yelling like you can hear me. I apologize.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hey,
Gabe,
what do you mean by
Can you hear me over here?
Yeah, I can hear you over there.
Oh, awesome.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Gabe Cass. He's been around since we've been around. So, Gabe, what do you mean by restart state?
So every time the borrower files bankruptcy, you have to restart the foreclosure.
okay.
That's right.
And pay for it all over again.
Yeah, that's fun.
So most places, if you're in BK or they file BK, you can actually start from where it left off, where Texas doesn't allow that. So that sucks. The other caveat, Texas, if it's a HELOC, you actually have to go through the judicial process and do a full foreclosure. Luckily, I've never ran to that. But learned that at a conference, which is pretty interesting.
I've had that where I thought I was buying it first, and technically it was, but it was structured as a HELOC. So I went to foreclose and expecting a quick foreclosure, and it took whatever it was, 6, 7, 8 months. So, that's not what I thought I was in for, but okay.
Cool. So we have something missing here, which is difficult, right? And sometimes we go back to the seller and say, listen, we can't run numbers on this.
Right.
One of the key things that I look to do is run time value numbers on stuff. Well, I'll be running a course soon, how to do that in a spreadsheet. But you can say, okay, what is my yield number? What is my present value number based on a return?
Yeah.
But you need certain data points to determine what the loan is.
Yeah.
If I don't know the first payment and maturity or term, I don't know how long the term is.
Right.
And I can't determine where they are on the amortization schedule with just a next due date or whatnot. So it makes it difficult to figure out how many payments are left.
And this one doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have when it started, doesn't have a maturity or due date or payment. So we're missing far too much information to be able to make any kind of headway on this. So it's kind of a pass, but I wanted to include it just to show that, you have to have certain pieces of information. I remember a couple of years back, somebody approached me and that they wanted to broker a note, which is fine. But he came to me and he didn't, it was kind of looked like this, where he was missing a bunch of information. I said, okay, well, I need this, 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 and this. And he, to his credit, he came back and said, so why do you need that information? Just so I understand. So I said, well, here's why, and went through it with him. But it's essential. We have to have that information so that we can put it together and see what the numbers are going to look like.
Yeah. So for those who may not be familiar, I'll bring up the sheet for you.